I'm going to show you the exact method I use to help coaches to plan a full week of high intent content without burning out. And when I say high intent content, I don't mean content that just gets views. I mean content that helps the right people to trust you. Content that moves someone one step closer to choosing you. And here's the best part. You don't need to create different content for Instagram, email, YouTube, LinkedIn, and every other platform that keeps screaming for your attention. You need something much, much simpler. You need 6 simple messages, and I call this the perfect week. It's built around the 6 P's, and this is something I picked up from my good friend Taki Moore. So, first one is philosophy. The second one is problem. Then we have the pain, the person, the plan, and the proof. We're gonna go much deeper into this a little bit later. These are 6 distinct messages in one tight week. And from this, you can create unlimited content. And this has changed the way I think about content completely, and I've been doing content for quite a long time. So back in the day, I built a multi-7-figure business here in Japan where we were filling live conferences with anywhere from 2,000 to 8,000 guests every single month. And I also recently exited another business. It's a video technology business for multiple 7 figures. That's a different story. And I've been running my own content agency for about a decade. So I've seen content from the stage, I've seen it as an agency owner, and I've seen it from the tech side. And right now I'm seeing it from the perspective of a coach. And after all that, here's the thing that I see coaches getting wrong the most. They think their content problem is a platform problem, but it's usually a message problem. They think they need more content, but they need stronger content. They think they need more places to post, but really they just need clearer reasons for people to trust them. They think they need a new idea, but what they really need is one strong message that can be adapted across multiple mediums, because the message is the asset, but the content, when I say content, I mean the videos, the carousels, and things like that. That's just the medium. And that's the big idea of this video I'm making right now. And by the end, I want you to understand why your content may not be getting clients, even if you're posting consistently. And I'm gonna show you how to fix it using the perfect week system. Let me start with a question. What's more important to you as a coach? To get more views or to be remembered? Because these two are not the same at all. And I learned this the hard way. For about 6 months, a little while ago, I basically stopped posting. It was just recycled stuff. I stopped sharing the lessons I was learning. I stopped talking about interesting things that were actually happening in my life. And part of the reason is I got really burned out. But the other part's a little bit embarrassing. I had fallen into what I call the outlier method. That's where you find a post that already went viral, or it's an outlier. You steal the hook, you copy the format, you use ChatGPT to change a few words around to make it yours, and then you hope the algorithm throws you a treat. And let's be fair, it works. You probably get more views, you'll probably get more likes, you might even get comments from people saying, "So true." But here's the thing, something weird happens. Because everybody else is doing it, nobody remembers you. They remember the format, they remember the hook, they remember the trend, but they don't remember you. Because your business is not built on views, it's built on trust. Don't get me wrong, views can help, attention can help, and the reach can help, but if the content does not make people trust you, what's even the point? That's why so many coaches are posting every week, but still not getting clients from their content. They're visible, but they're not memorable. They're active, but they're not trusted. They're showing up, but they're not saying anything that makes the right person stop and think, that person gets me. And that's the real job of your content. So the problem is this, most coaches are thinking they need to create content for every single platform. And it looks like this. They think, I need an Instagram idea. I need an email idea. I need a carousel idea. I need a YouTube idea. I need a LinkedIn idea. I need a podcast idea. And when you think that way, content gets really exhausting because now every single platform feels like a separate job. You're not just creating content, you're managing 6 different hungry little monsters. One wants short videos, one wants emails, another one wants carousels, one wants long form videos like YouTube, one wants captions, and one wants posts. And what happens is before long, you're overwhelmed before you even start. And then I remembered something from years of running a content agency. This is not how strong content works. With professional agencies, the message comes first and the medium or the content itself comes next. All strong content starts with the message, not the format. Let's think about fantastic advertising. When a brand has a great message like "Just Do It" from Nike or "Think Different" from Apple, those messages can show up anywhere. It can become a TV ad, it can become a print ad, it can become a landing page, it can become an email, it can become a graphic, it can become a carousel, it can become a billboard, a YouTube video, a podcast segment, it can even become a short form video. You see, the message is the asset and the content itself is just a medium. And this right here, that's a shift that most coaches need to make. So let me make it super clear. Stop planning platforms. start planning messages. Your email is not a brand new idea. Your short form video is not another brand new idea. And your carousel is not a brand new idea. Your YouTube video is not a brand new idea. They're just different ways to deliver the same core message. But then we gotta be careful because this is gonna create another mistake. Some of you are gonna hear one message, multiple mediums, and think, great, I'll just shoot one video and chop it up into everything. And yes, sometimes that can work, but this is not the highest level. This is just lazy repurposing. And since tools like Opus and AI editing came around, right now the internet is flooded with too much of this stuff, and it's almost impossible to get noticed unless you're already famous now. So the better version is something called intentional content. So here's intentional content. It means it's the same message, but it's a different execution. For example, if you're making a short form video, you shoot it like a short form video on a phone in vertical mode. If you're making a YouTube video, you build it like a YouTube video, like I am right now. Multiple angles, a little bit of lighting, a bit of production, longer form and horizontal. If you're writing an email, write it to make it sound like an email. If you're making a carousel, shape the message so it works slide by slide. The message, the core message is the same, but the expression should fit the medium. That's the difference. Repurposing says, I already made this thing and I can just chop it up. Intentional content is different. It says, I got the core message, how can I express it in different ways? And that is a much smarter question. So now that we know that the message is the asset, the next question becomes, how far ahead do we actually plan? And this is where I think a lot of coaches fall into one of two extremes. See, on the one hand, we have what I call hand to mouth. When I say hand to mouth, we're talking about coaches who wake up and think, what am I gonna talk about today? What am I gonna create? So they scroll on Instagram, they look for ideas, they copy somebody else's hook, they rewrite someone else's post, they use some GPT prompt, and then they whip out their phone and they shoot something quickly. So they post it and then they do the same thing again tomorrow. Here's the problem. They're busy all the time. They're always posting, they're creating, they're feeding the machine, but at the end of the month, they're left with nothing to show for it. So they don't have a system. They don't have a clear body of work. There's no bigger story or message, and they don't have a message bank with content ready to go. They just have a pile of posts made in survival mode, and it works as long as you keep feeding the beast and you never stop. This is hand-to-mouth content. It keeps you active, but it doesn't build much. Then on the other side, I have what I call the preppers. These are the people who want to plan the entire month at a time or more. They want 30 days or more of content all the time ready to go. They want a stockpile. They want everything ready in advance. And honestly, I respect that, and it's the system I actually use. And coming from an agency owner perspective, this format is super efficient. This works super well for a busy founder who would commit one full day or maybe 2 days every single month. We would batch all the content, we would shoot everything in that concentrated amount of time, and then the team takes over, they edit, they schedule, and they publish the content. The prepper format, it's clean, it's organized, and it works really well. But then I started to realize something. That model works best when content day is a big production event, kind of like what I'm doing right now. But most coaches inside my program, they don't have time or the resources to do a big production every single month. They want to spend their time serving their clients. They want to run their business and do marketing. They actually want to live a good lifestyle, and they want their content to feel current. They want to talk about what's actually happening right now, or at least this week. The client call from yesterday, the pattern that they notice in their business this week, the objections they keep hearing on sales calls, the mistakes they just made, the thing they finally understood after hearing the same question from their clients for the 10th freaking time. That stuff is alive. And a lot of that gets lost when you try to plan everything 30 days ahead with the prepper format. So daily planning, hand to mouth, is too reactive. Monthly planning can be really heavy. Then we have the sweet spot. This is what I call the Goldilocks zone. Not 1 day at a time, not 1 month at a time, but 1 week at a time. So with hand to mouth, we're doing 1 day at a time. With the prepper format, we're doing 30 days or more at a time. With the Goldilocks, what if we could do 7 days at a time, just 1 week? 1 short planning session, 6 strong messages, and 5 posts. 1 week of content that builds trust. This is what I call the perfect week. Literally yesterday morning, I tested this system, the perfect week, live with my coaching clients. I built an AI agent and I walked them through the process. We did a bit of prep work, and within 25 minutes, around 95% of all my clients on a live Zoom call had their full week of content planned and ready to shoot. And just between us, these are professional coaches, not professional content creators. So the quality of material they did was amazing, because they had the right system. They didn't suddenly become creative geniuses. They didn't get a big team, and they didn't spend 2 full days filming. They had a system that forced them to stop thinking in terms of content and platforms and start thinking much more about their core message. And that's the shift. Instead of asking, what do I post on Instagram? They started asking, what does my audience need to understand this week? And that's a much better question. And the perfect week right here gives you a simple way to answer it. You build your week around the 6 Ps. When you're looking at who falls into these categories, if you look at hand to mouth, we're talking mostly about influencers. It works really well because they want to always be on, kind of like a Twitch influencer, right? Perfect week is great for coaches. And preppers are really great for CEO/founders. There's something for everybody. Just figure out what's gonna work for you. So build your week around the 6 Ps. We have philosophy, problem, pain, person, plan, and proof. Now let me walk you through each one of these. The first P is philosophy, and this is the most important one because your philosophy is the lens for the whole week. This is your unique take. It's what you believe that most other people miss. It might be something obvious but ignored. It might be something contrarian. It might be something that you learned the hard way. It might be a popular idea in your industry that you are fighting against. But here is where most people mess this up. They think philosophy means giving advice, but it does not. That's not what this is. Advice is be consistent, know your audience, show up every day, and that's fine. But it's also generic. Philosophy is much, much deeper. So here's an example of a philosophy that I've adopted. It's say only what only you can say. And that's a principle that I try to use as much as possible with my own content. If somebody else can say the same thing that I'm saying, then it's no longer a unique piece of content. I've got no moat. I've got nothing that makes my content different than anybody else's. What that means is stop posting generic advice that could have come from any other coach with a ring light and an iPhone. Your story is your moat. It's the one thing that your competitors can't copy. They can copy your hook, they can copy your format, they can copy your carousel layout on Canva, but they can't copy the client conversation you had on Tuesday. They can't copy the mistake you made 5 years ago. And they can't copy the belief you earned the hard way. I remember I scrolled back on my social media years ago when I got started and I was looking at my posts and it was really embarrassing. I dare you to go and do that right now on my channel. You can look back. The thing is, the content I was making was the stuff that genuinely inspired me, but it was something a lot like Tony Robbins or Grant Cardone or Gary Vee or the people who were inspiring me at the time. None of what I was saying was unique enough that only I could be the person saying it. Here's one way to look at it. When you are already famous, then you can switch to really wide audience generic advice, and that's gonna work. At this stage, your story is what makes them stop, and your philosophy is what makes them remember. So the question to ask yourself is, what do you believe about your topic that most other people miss? Don't go automatically for what sounds smart, not what your industry already agrees with. What do you actually believe? That is your philosophy piece. But philosophy alone is not enough. A strong belief gets attention, but people also need to understand what is the actual problem. And that brings us to the second P, problem. The problem piece is where you name the real issue. This is the real issue that you actually believe from your own experience is what's keeping them stuck. Because you and I know that most people misdiagnose their own problems, right? A coach might say, I need more content ideas, but maybe the real problem is that their content does not create enough trust. They might say, I need to post on more platforms, but maybe the real problem is that their core message is kind of weak. They might say, I need to be more consistent, but maybe the real problem is that they're bored with their own content because none of it feels personal. The problem piece right here should make someone think, oh, that's why this was not working. For this video, for example, the problem is simple. Most coaches think they need different content for every platform, but what they really need is a small set of strong messages that can be adapted across all platforms. You don't need more random ideas. You need better source material. That's A, not B. But when we hit the next layer, knowing what the problem is useful, but people don't move just because they understand the problem. They move when they feel the cost of staying there. One way to diagnose if you really nail the problem is they should come away with an aha moment. If there's a clear aha, then you've nailed the problem. And knowing exactly what the problem is super useful, but people aren't going to actually move or do anything until they feel the pain of not changing their current behavior. And that brings us to the next P, And you don't want to do this in vague terms. Not generic stuff like you feel stuck or you're not reaching your full potential. Pain needs to feel like real life. For example, you posted all week, you recorded, you edited, you uploaded, you checked the views, and maybe you got some likes, and then you open up your Stripe account and saw a big fat 0. Nothing changed. What I just said there, that is pain. You want them to feel a real visceral ouch when you talk about the pain. The pain is not just low engagement. The pain is, I'm doing all this work and I still don't have clients. I'm showing up, but people are not buying. I'm starting to feel like content is a second job that I don't get paid for. Or I'm starting to wonder if I'm just bad at all this. That is what people feel in private. And when your content names this private, the secret pain clearly, people trust you faster because they think this person actually understands what this feels like. And that's a job that the pain piece accomplishes. Now, if all you do is talk about pain, you're gonna start sounding like an angry, disgruntled boomer who wants to rant. So we need a human story, and that brings us to the next one, which is person. Now, a lot of people get this wrong. They think person means your ideal customer profile, your ICP, but it doesn't. Person doesn't mean coaches making $10,000 a month who want more clients. That does matter, but this is different. Inside the Perfect Week system, it means something way more useful. For the purposes of the 6 Ps, person means describe the person that's gonna humanize the message for the person watching the video. Who is the real human story that brings this idea to life? This person, it could be you. It could be a client. It could be a prospect. It could be someone you spoke to. It could be someone from your past. But it needs to be a real person because people remember stories about real people. People don't remember bullet points. This is why it's so important that your content doesn't sound like a lecture. Coaches, we love teaching, and that's the gift, but it's also a trap because if all you do is teach, your content starts to feel like homework. A story gives the idea of a body. It gives the lesson a face. It gives the viewer something to picture, and often the smaller the detail, the stronger the story. So an example of weak content is, I used to struggle with visibility. Is it true? Yes, but there's no detail. A better version of that is gonna be, I started realizing I was avoiding sales calls because I cleaned my desk for 45 minutes every single day when I had sales scheduled that day. The second one feels real, and the first one feels generic. So when you plan your week, ask, who exactly lived this? Who did I see this happen to? What actually happened? And what teeny weeny detail happened that I can share that's gonna make it more real? But then story alone is not enough. At some point, people need to know how you can help them. How are you gonna take them from point A to point B? And that brings us to plan. The plan piece is the path. How are you gonna take them from point A to point B? But here's a mistake. Most coaches explain their plan like a sales page. They say things like, I'm gonna help you gain clarity, build confidence, and unlock your full potential. Please don't do that. You're gonna come across like a cheap, unwanted brochure stuffed into their mailbox. So your plan should be simple enough to remember. What changes first? What changes second? What changes third? What do you help them stop doing? What do you help them start doing? For the perfect week, for example, the plan is simple. First, stop planning per platform. Second, pick one weekly focus or message. Third, build 6 distinct pieces of content around one core message using the 6 Ps. And fourth, record the best and strongest ones. And then fifth, adapt the message into all the right mediums. That's the plan. It's simple, clear, and repeatable. And the plan piece should have a call to action because once the right person understands the path, they may be ready for the next step. And if you don't tell them exactly what to do, you're gonna lose them. Don't make this a call to action to book a call because that doesn't work on organic like it used to and it makes you sound desperate. A much better version is gonna be offering them something genuinely useful that they can consume for free. And that is gonna be the bridge that gets them to the next stage and having a sales conversation with you. If you want to see more details about bridge content, then I got a card up here or a link down below. Check that out. But then even when you have a plan ready, there's still one more thing missing. Because let's be real, even if the plan is perfect and it sounds real, we want the result, we still want something else. And that something else is going to be proof. Proof shows that the idea you have is not just theory. Proof can be a testimonial, a client result, a screenshot of a DM, a before and after story, a personal result. But don't fake proof ever, ever, ever. If you do not have names or permission to use names or numbers, use anonymous proof, but don't invent it. You're gonna just shoot yourself in the foot. For this particular framework, one piece of proof is what I mentioned earlier in this video. You see, I took the 6 Ps method and I tested it with my paying clients, and within 25 minutes, 90% of them had a full week of high quality planned. And that matters because the goal is not to make a complex content planning system. The goal is to make it easier to say something better. And another example is my client, Sarah. She came to me because she didn't have a real system for creating and publishing content. She had ideas, she had experience, she had clients, but she did not have consistency, structure, or a clear way to turn content into clients. So we built out her system together. And within a couple months, she got to the point where she was spending $2,000 on ads and getting over $40,000 in sales as a result. Now, that's not a promise that everyone gets the result. You see, telling these stories proves a much bigger point. You're not just creating content to remain active, you're actually making progress in real ways. And that's what this proof piece does. It turns your idea from interesting to believable. So we got through the 6 Ps. Let's go through this one more time. Philosophy. What do you believe that most people miss? Problem. What's the real issue? Pain. What's it actually costing them? Person. Who is the real human story? And plan. How do you take them from point A to point B? Proof. What shows that this actually works? And when you put these together, you get a full week of content. Not random posts, not AI slop, not copy and paste viral hooks. You get a real week. A week with a point of view, a week with a story, a week that builds toward a conversation, a week that can be adapted across all your social media. Because again, the message is your asset, and the content, that means like the videos, the carousels, the captions, that is just the medium. And if your message is weak, putting it on more platforms just spreads your weakness faster. And that's not a content strategy. That is just making your confusion available to more people in more formats. But if your message is strong, you can adapt it everywhere. I'm gonna close this off by really drilling down on 2 basic rules that I've adopted and that have worked really well for both me and my clients. Rule number 1 is this: say only what only you can say. And here's rule number 2: do only what only you can do. What I mean by rule number 1, say only what only you can say, it means that your content should come from your story, your clients, your beliefs, your proof, your mistakes, your method, your lived experience, not from copying whatever hook is trending this week. And rule number 2, do only what only you can do. That's the production rule. You don't need to be the editor. You're a coach. You don't need to be a designer. You're a coach. You don't need to become a full-time content creator just to get clients from content. You're a coach. Your job is to be the source, the thinker, the storyteller, the person with real lived experience, the person with real client conversations, the person with real beliefs, the person with proof. And that is the part nobody else can do for you. So if you're a coach and you're already posting, but your content is not turning into clients, I want you to stop thinking, what platform do I create for? And start thinking, what are the 6 messages that my audience needs to hear this week? Because that question can change everything. And if you want help to implement this, there's a link down in the description. What it is a page to a live workshop. Whether you're seeing it before I do it or after, I want you to go there to grab the resources so you can get the AI agent and the worksheets that you can implement it for yourself. The session is something I'm doing live with really smart coaches and helping them implement it through. So if you're ready to take some serious action, there's a bit of a commitment, so click down below to see all the details about how that works.